Hello, it's Thursday, July 31st, 2025. Happy birthday to my dad. That's right, and I will also be hosting a hangout tonight at 8 p.m. East. Look for the link in today's show email. I've got the great Sam Youngman joining me today. Always great when I have an opportunity to talk to the brilliant, passionate, and hilarious Sam Youngman. Today is no exception. That is coming up at about 30 minutes into today's show. But first, it's time for your headlines and your clips. I've got it all for you today. A full show. I'm back, at least for the day, and I'm very happy to be here with you. Thank you very much for joining me. This show is ad-free. It's only here because of you are a paid subscriber. Patreon.com/PeteDominic. And if you are not, today might be your day. Patreon.com/PeteDominic now. Okay, let's see. Where are we starting today with the news? Well, let's check in with the madness of our Mad King, who every day threatens world leaders, other countries, and his own people. His own U.S. senators, Republican senators, got a piece of his mind yesterday, and it's because he's absolutely insane and crazy. Well, let's see. He starts with Brazil, and India yesterday announced that many goods imported into the U.S. from Brazil would immediately face a 50% tax. It's the highest tariff currently in place that our Mad King had imposed this year, and arrived 2 days ahead of schedule. Also announced new sanctions against a Brazilian Supreme Court justice overseeing the criminal case against the former leader who's friends with our tiny Hitler dictator, Jair Bolsonaro. Former president was accused of orchestrating an attempted coup after losing the 2022 elections. Of course, our Mad King has described the prosecution of his friend as a witch hunt. Sound familiar? The moves were a sharp escalation of the feud between Trump and Latin America's largest nation, according to the New York Times, as well as an apparent rebuke of Brazil's president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. In other trade news, our little tyrant said that he would impose a 25% tariff on imports on India starting Friday, as well as a potential penalty tariff for purchases on Russian oil, though I won't hold my breath on that one. 10 more days. And secondary sanctions on Russia are set to go into effect if it can't come to a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine. But we'll see. We'll be watching that for sure, obviously. Other big news yesterday was that the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, announced that it would hold interest rates steady for a fifth meeting in a row. It also revealed two top Fed officials had voted against the move, which hasn't happened since 1993. The dissenting Fed officials supported an interest rate cut, which the Don and his allies have been demanding for months. The president, who has discussed firing Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, over the central bank's continued rate pause, said yesterday that he expected the Fed rates to be cut in September. Well, Powell stressed that such a decision could be made only after waiting to see more economic data. The U.S. economic growth softened the first half of the year as tariffs weighed on consumers and businesses, and they are probably going to continue to. Other big news yesterday was that Kamala Harris announced she would not run for California governor next year. For now, she said, her leadership and public service will not be in elected office. So that was big news yesterday. Talk a little bit with Sam Youngman about that. He actually broke that news to me during our conversation. I did not know that. That is wild. What is she going to do next? In other politics news, Texas, the great state of Texas. Hello, Tina, and everybody else down there. Texas unveiled a new gerrymandered map designed to give Republicans 5 more House seats. So let the gerrymander war begin. I got some great audio from a Texan who was quite opposed to that. And what else? Canada said it would recognize a Palestinian state, which was a huge deal. I don't think that this war is working out for Israel. Prime Minister Mark Carney said that yesterday afternoon, would recognize a Palestinian state unless Israel agrees to a ceasefire in Gaza. It's a weird thing to say. The UK said that the day before. Canada's formal recognition would come in September, joining both Britain and France. Carney said that the recognition was contingent on several commitments made by the Palestinian Authority, including the exclusion of Hamas from any government, the return of hostages to Israel, and the holding of elections next year. France's recognition is intended to go into effect regardless of Israel's actions. Britain UK did not go as far and will withhold recognition if Israel agrees to a ceasefire. So that is a massive change in the stances of those European countries vis-a-vis a potential Palestinian state. Brown University said it reached a deal with the Trump administration to bend the knee and restore their federal funding. Senate Democrats invoked a little-known law to try to force the release of material connected to the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Yesterday, the Senate confirmed a new leader for the CDC. Her name is Susan Monarez, and it was a party line vote. That's right. Completely party line. She's the first CDC director without a medical degree in more than 70 years. She's also the first CDC director subject to Senate confirmation following a new requirement from a 2023 law. So we'll look into her and find out what she believes, which is probably not in science. And finally, the Trump administration, the regime, if you will, is pushing an initiative led by RFK Jr. for millions of Americans to upload personal health data and medical records on new apps and systems run by private tech companies, promising it'll make it easier to access health records and monitor wellness. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do that right now, but thank you very much for the offer. All right, those are the headlines that I've gathered for you today. What did I miss? Let me know. standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right, let's get to the clips. I've got a bunch of great clips for you, and let's jump into them right now. It's the clip show. Time for the clip show. Let's start with this clip from the show Breaking Points, which I thought was really interesting. I watched this whole interview that they did with the senator from Michigan, Alyssa Slotkin, and this is Crystal Ball and Alyssa Slotkin for about 3 minutes going back and forth. This is probably as good of a debate as you're going to get on what's happening with the Arab-Israeli conflict, and Crystal Ball really holds Senator Slotkin's feet to the fire. She does her best to defend herself, but I thought this was really very interesting, very important, and wanted to share it all with you. Well, just this 3 minutes or so, but the whole interview is worth it.
Listen, I'm a YouTuber. You know, I have my words. That's all I have. Yeah. But you're a United States senator. Mm-hmm. Like you're not the president, but you have power. So what are you going to do? Because so far what we've seen, I mean, you voted for some of the aid that's been used to massacre children and innocents. You know, you have backed Israel, as far as I can tell, you know, from your voting record at almost every turn. You voted for a definition of anti-Semitism that would, you know, codify anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. You voted as a member of the House to sanction the ICC for indicting Benjamin Netanyahu, who you just admitted is a war criminal, you know, by your own words. So are you going to join Senator Angus King, Senator Bernie Sanders in saying no more aid to this country that is committing war crimes against innocent civilians?
I think the first thing, if you're asking about what to do with power, and I would offer that right now Democrats own nothing in Washington. So
don't play powerless with me. You're a United States senator. There are things you can do.
In terms of who runs our foreign policy, I just think it's interesting, right, that there was a ton of protests when Democrats were in charge.
There was a protest in Manhattan yesterday.
Okay. I think it's fair to say, just to be honest, that back and forth, like the number of protests that go on now versus before.
Well, they were part of your political coalition.
Well, that's
right?
I mean, Senator Slotkin,
that's fair.
Obviously, I'm here.
Yeah.
I was very upset over the Biden administration policy. Mm-hmm. And as you can tell, I'm very upset over the Trump administration policy. Yeah. So let's deal not in strawman, but me in the here and now.
In terms of the tools that I have, the tools that we have in general, to me, the most important thing is a pressurized campaign to get aid into people who are starving. That, to me, is the number one, because that's the one is urgent and today. And that.
But will you cut off aid to Israel so long as they're committing crimes against humanity?
There is a difference between a weapon to protect a country from incoming missiles versus other type. Offensive and defensive weapons are different.
So would you support offensive weapons ban? Like, would you stop any offensive aid to Israel?
That certainly, to me, would be a place to look. But I'm not going to cut off a blanket next sale on a defensive weapon that comes through. No.
I also reject that because, for example, if Senator Slotkin, if you were asked to support defensive weapons for Iran, defensive weapons for Russia, you wouldn't back that.
No, but Iran, but
they're defensive. They're just protecting civilians, right? So how is it different?
But because Israel's being shot at.
So is Russia.
So is Iran.
Yeah.
So is Russia.
Ukraine's shooting at Russia right now.
I'm sorry. This is the difference between allies, partners, and adversaries.
Why is it an ally then? What are they doing right now which just makes it an ally?
I think allied relationships, just like Lithuania, right?
All right, well, that's where it cuts off. Sorry about that. But what did you think? What did you think about that? I look forward to talking to folks tonight about this very controversial issue, which people are terrified to talk about. But I want to talk about it with you. I want to hear from you. So hopefully you will see you tonight at the Hangout. If you're as affected by it as I am, watching these kids starve is absolutely horrific. Here is Mark Carney. He is the very soft-spoken new Prime Minister of Canada. And here's what he had to say about potential recognition of Palestine as a state.
For the reasons I cited earlier, Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025. This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state. Canada will increase its efforts in supporting strong democratic governance in Palestine and the contributions of its people to a more peaceful and hopeful future. I spoke today with President Abbas at length to reaffirm his commitments. Canada reiterates that Hamas must immediately release all hostages taken in the horrific terrorist attack of October 7th, that Hamas must disarm, and that Hamas must play no role in the future governance of Palestine. Canada will always steadfastly support Israel's existence as an independent state in the Middle East, living in peace and security. Any path to lasting peace for Israel also requires a viable and stable Palestinian state, and one that recognizes Israel's inalienable right to security and peace.
All right, there you go. Mark Carney yesterday in Canada. Let's go to Texas. Kim Nyborg, longtime listener, friend of ours, sent this clip to me yesterday. Thank you very much, Kim. This is from a town hall where a Texas resident drove 3 hours to have his voice heard, and have his voice heard he did. Check it out. This is about the redistricting issue. Texans are no fan of this, and they know exactly where it came from, at least some Texans.
Please give us your testimony.
I drove here 3 hours to get here. I came from Abilene, Texas. And if I'm willing to drive 3 hours to come here and talk, I'm going to ask you to get off your phone and listen to what I have to say. You got a call from Donald Trump. He told you to go find 5 seats. No, he got asked, how many seats? He said 5. He was asked on the news. You say, we don't have any maps. Well, how in the hell does Donald Trump know he's going to get 5 seats? I bet you anything there's maps that are there. This is ridiculous. A man a few days ago was arrested because he spoke too long at the lectern. He spoke too long, and y'all said, he had to be arrested because he broke the rules. How many of you are going to get arrested for breaking the rules of mistreating the citizens of this state? You're breaking the rules. We are the citizens of this nation. We're the ones. It's supposed to be bottom up, not top down. I'm going to say this one thing to you. You know it's wrong. In your heart, you know it's wrong.
Yes, indeed they do. Well done. Thank you, Kim, for sending that. Very passionate, very articulate, well-spoken, angry, and I loved it. I wish I knew his name, but that was very, very good. All right, let's head over to someone whose name we do know, unfortunately, Chuck Schumer, the feckless leader of the Democrats in the Senate, talking about trying to force the release of the Epstein files. This is not going away, and I think it's important that Democrats keep it in the forefront of our minds, especially since we're learning new things every day.
Now I come to the floor this morning with some news. Today, Senate Democrats take additional action to try and uncover the truth about the Epstein files. This morning, I join all of my Democratic colleagues on the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee in invoking a century-old law known as the Rule of 5 to compel the Department of Justice to release the full and complete Epstein files, which to date, of course, they have refused to be transparent about. Under federal law, when any 5 senators on the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee call on the executive branch to release investigative documents, they must comply. Our request covers all documents, files, evidence, or other materials in the possession of the Department of Justice or the FBI related to the case of United States versus Jeffrey Epstein. This includes records and documents related to Epstein and his clients, while ensuring that the private information of any victims is protected. We expect the Trump administration to provide these documents by August the 15th. The situation with the Epstein files is very simple. Donald Trump promised transparency, and he has broken that promise. As a candidate, Trump said on many occasions he would release the Epstein files if elected, and yet he has refused to do so.
All right. Well, good stuff. That's important, and we'll see what happens and if we're ever going to see these files and how much Trump is in all of them, whatever the documents and files are. Let's go to Chuck Grassley. He is the 90-some-year-old senator from Iowa, and he got raked by his friend Donald Trump, went after him, and I thought that was awesome because I don't like Chuck Grassley and anybody else who ever kissed the Trump's ring, bent the knee, said a nice thing about him. And I love it when he turns and savages them for the pettiest of reasons, and they look embarrassed. And here is Chuck Grassley, who sounds very upset, sounds very hurt by his friend Donald Trump. I don't know why he attacked me.
Last night, I was surprised to see President Trump on Truth Social go after me and Senate Republicans over what we call the blue slip. Now, to people in the real America, not here in this Washington, D.C., an island surrounded by reality, the people in real America don't care about what the blue slip is, but in fact it impacts in their states the district judges who serve their communities and the U.S. attorneys who ensure the law and order is enforced. I was offended by what the president said, and I'm disappointed that it would result in personal insults.
Oh, Chuck, are you hurt? I feel really bad. I'm just kidding. Good. Okay, well, let's move on to another clip. These are a couple clips of Zohran Mamdani yesterday. Man, this guy is good at talking, charismatic, and smart, real smart. Talk about this more with Sam Youngman coming up. But of course, there was this shooting in New York City, and everybody is all the mayoral candidates are being asked about it. It's become a subject for the campaign. How are we going to make New Yorkers safer from gun violence? Well, how much can mayors do? We have some really great gun restrictions and regulations in New York, and that's why there's not nearly as much gun violence as there used to be and as there is in other cities, for sure. Well, this is how Zohran Mamdani handled it, and I thought it was great. In the past, he has been very critical of law enforcement. He called the NYPD racist. Well, so did the former NYPD chief, to be fair. But I just thought this was great. Listen to Zohran Mamdani talk.
And in this moment of mourning and of grief, I want to thank law enforcement for their response to the horrific shooting on Monday and their work in keeping New Yorkers safe. I ask that in this moment we come together as New Yorkers and we remember the 4 of our neighbors that were killed. We honor their memories and we live up to the way in which they led their lives.
Okay, well, there's more. He was asked a question about a reporter about his past statements about law enforcement, and here he is.
Over the course of this race, I've been very clear about my view of public safety and the critical role that police have in creating that. Public safety that officers are tasked with delivering while we ask them to respond to nearly every failure of the social safety net. And the vision that we've put forward in this campaign, despite what others may say, is not to defund the police. It is, in fact, to allow those officers to respond to these serious crimes that many of them signed up to address, and to do so by ensuring that we ask them to focus on those crimes and we ask mental health professionals to respond to calls of mental health crises. And as it pertains to the Strategic Response Group, when it was first formed, there was an intention for its use to be more akin to the manner in which it was deployed earlier this week. What we have found, however, is the city has come to rely upon the Strategic Response Group as its primary means of response to acts of protest across the city when New Yorkers exercise their First Amendment rights. And that decision in asking the members of that unit to respond to protests, as opposed to what was the stated reason, is a decision that has led to the violation of a number of New Yorkers' civil rights, and it's a decision that has been the basis of my critique of the use of the group towards that end. And what I would also say in this moment is that it is beyond me that politicians are looking to use these days to score such cynical political points on the very day that I held the father of Officer Islam in my arms as he could not utter a single word, and as I felt him sobbing at the memory of his 36-year-old son who will never come home. To visit that family, to meet those children, to understand what this man meant to so many, and to hear from his brother-in-law that today was the day that they had timed their vacation together so that they could visit a water park in New Jersey. And that the brother-in-law's children knew they were supposed to go, Officer Islam's children knew they were supposed to go, and yet they were at home mourning a father who will never return. This is a time to honor those memories. This is a time to lead this city in coming together, not a moment to try and score the very points that turn so many New Yorkers away from politics.
Yeah, I thought it was good. What did you think? I want to know what you think. I think the guy is pretty solid and a great speaker, and we'll talk more about him with Sam Youngman coming up. Next, I want to go to comedian Josh Johnson doing stand-up. Mostly a serious statement here, 2 minutes or so, but I love this kid. I think he's great. He's now a host over at The Daily Show. He was, I think, a correspondent before. Brilliant young man, super thoughtful and passionate and a great communicator, and I love this clip. Talking about the history of racism in America. He's a young black man, but specifically as it relates to our immigration laws.
There's always been racism in it. It's mainly what it is, because if you really cared about people coming over the right way, the legal way, then you would make the right way and the legal way clear, and you wouldn't kidnap people at their green card interviews, and you wouldn't have like mass people picking people up after baseball practice, okay? If that's what you cared about. And you also, you've structured this thing to make these people seem like monsters. That's been the plan this entire time, because if somebody is a monster, it is part of the human condition and a flaw that we have. As long as we see somebody as a monster, whether they are or not, we don't really care what happens to them. It's why they can make conditions in prison so bad, because the assumption is, well, everybody that's there deserves to be there, so screw them, right? If they don't have clean water, or if they can't shower, or if their food's contaminated, good. Because they did something bad to earn that place, right? And it helps you strip the basic humanity of looking at another person, whether they've made a mistake or not, or looking at another person, whether from a different country or not. And if you get really good at stripping that humanity away, you can do whatever you want, and then you start to be able to do whatever you want to anybody that you want. And that's what's been creeping up this entire time. What started as like, guys, they're eating the dogs. Remember, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. Nobody's pets are safe. It was getting so dumb. It was past like, these are criminals and they're killing us and they're coming over here to do terrible things. And then it started to morph a little bit more. Okay, look, I know that they're going through the proper channels and everything, but they have a misdemeanor in another country. Do we really want somebody like that to become a citizen? Maybe we should deport them now. No, I understand that they have their green card, but they also, I don't know, they have this weird past I don't like, or they wrote an op-ed I didn't like, or they said a thing that I didn't like. So do we really want someone like that in our country? I know that they are a fully naturalized citizen, but the way that they became a citizen is a little bit under suspect, because I said so just now. So maybe we'll deport them. And now we're all the way to the point that American citizens that I do not like can be gone. And so you see, when you let somebody's humanity get stripped away over and over and over again, and it's in the back of your head, and you even go with the lie. They probably did something, or maybe they shouldn't have done that thing, or maybe they have a good reason. When you do that enough and it finally comes for you, don't be surprised.
Yeah, good stuff. Really smart stuff from Josh Johnson and from this comedian who we always love to hear from is Trey Crowder, weighing in on the whole Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein latest controversy scandal. And we love Trey Crowder. Here he goes with one of his car rants.
Y'all ever get pissed off about something, where you're like, man, that ain't even happened yet, but just thinking about if it did happen is enough to ruin my whole day, right? Like, right-wingers do this all the time. They get mad about stuff that might happen, like AOC making a valid point, or trans people getting rights. Like, nothing enrages a conservative like their own imagination. And that's annoying, but I guess I'm not immune to it, because I've been over here working myself into a tizzy just thinking about where this whole Ghislaine and the DOJ situation might go, because it's very easy to imagine it going in a direction that's both patently asinine and deeply upsetting, aka the order of the day in 2025, right? Because after all, from the very beginning of this most recent Epstein uproar, people have been wondering, like, why is Trump not making more shit up here? Like, ain't that the MO? Ain't that how it works over there? Something happens, MAGA no likey, make shit up, now MAGA happy. It's a very simple process that they've employed time and again to tremendous effect. So why are they not doing it here? Like, as soon as people got mad when Bondi said there was no list, if Trump just immediately came out like, actually, she was wrong, she's a woman, they do that, we know this, there is a list, I have it right here, and he pulls out a McDonald's wrapper on which is written in crayon the mostly misspelled words, Epstein bad guys, Clinton's, parentheses, all of them, stupid sexy Obama, Rosie O'Donnell probably, and not Trump. And the base would have just been like, thank you for clearing that up, sir, and for everything that you do. Would anyone have been surprised by that? No. I just feel like this Ghislaine thing might be a version of that. If they can get her to go on the record like, oh yeah, the Bills were there, the Bidens, some Harvard people, Fauci for some reason, Jimmy Kimmel brought a goat, it was a whole thing. And the only person who refused to participate, you guessed it, Donald J. Trump. In fact, Jeff used to say to me all the time, we can never let Trump find out what's going on here, because if he does, he'll save every last one of these children. He's simply too brilliant and pure of heart. Also, we're all jealous of his hair. This has been the sworn testimony of Ghislaine Maxwell. And Pam Bondi's like, alrighty, here's your presidential pardon and a certificate for half-off apps at Mar-a-Lago. Thanks for coming in. And that happens, and Cat Turd and your dumbest uncle are like, yep, I'd say that case closed. And we're over here pulling our hair out like, what? Really? Like, the world's most notorious living child sex trafficker whose willingness to perjure herself is public record and who benefits tremendously from testifying in that fashion. Like, you think her word is rock good, rock solid, rock's good enough for me. And I know that hasn't happened yet, but it's very easy to imagine it. And that fact alone just makes you want to scream and flail and cry and explode. Like, a lot of people say that ain't going to happen. She's too radioactive. It's politically untenable to pardon her, but is politically untenable an outdated concept at this point? Trump's been asked if he'd pardon her, and all he'll say is, well, I can if I want to. You can't stop me. I'll do it right now. Say I won't. And I added that last part, but that's his general attitude, and that does not inspire confidence, man. But still, it ain't actually happened yet, so I guess I'll just, cross my fingers and go back to getting pissed off at dumb shit after it occurs. I'm sure it won't take long. Love y'all.
All right. Trey Crowder, always awesome. And let's check in with Colbert, who was back last night, and awesome as always. He's been on all week, I should say. And I'm sharing these clips pretty much every day now that I can get to him. Here he is. Take it away, Stephen.
Unfortunately, these hot summers are, nothing new, because we are coming off the hottest year ever recorded on Earth. The hottest year ever. Scientists warned it would happen if we put Pedro Pascal in this many movies. He's everywhere. Yeah, you ever seen young Pedro Pascal? Pretty shoot. Faced with this clear threat to humanity, the Trump EPA is leaping into action, announcing it wants to eliminate regulation for greenhouse gases. No, stop booing. You're just releasing more CO2. You're part of the problem. The EPA announced it wants to throw out the so-called endangerment finding from 2009, which concluded that greenhouse gases endanger public health and welfare. Getting rid of it will allow the EPA to eliminate rules to reduce climate pollution from cars and trucks. Okay, but you're the Environmental Protection Agency. You're supposed to protect the environment. You're just giving up? This explains why Woodsy Al has updated his catchphrase to, Why give a hoot? I'm just filling my pockets with rocks and walking into the river like Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, there you go. Just a little taste of Colbert. And that is your clip show. I hope you liked it. I hope you got a lot out of that in the headlines. And going to be back with a full-throated show. And I've got a great guest, one of my favorites. Joining me right now is Sam Youngman. He is a veteran reporter. He's covered a whole bunch of campaigns. He's a Kentucky guy. He's a surfer. And he is one part of thealtmedia.com with Adam Parkomenko. You should go subscribe to it. They are great. Thealtmedia.com. Follow Sam on Blue Sky and everywhere else. More about him in the show notes. And now we're going to do it. We were live yesterday on YouTube, by the way, if you want to go watch us, youtube.com/Stand Up With Pete. Let's do it right now with Sam Youngman. Yeah, I've been waiting all day to talk to Sam Youngman, but he was fighting off a tsunami. Is everything okay on the West Coast?
Yeah, we're good. I scared a lot of people this morning telling them I was going surfing, but it's actually pretty mellow out there. And I wanted to be able to say that I surfed a tsunami. So, it was great. Other than, like the news helicopters flying over the coast to check out the idiots who still paddled out like me. It's, I tell you though, just like texting with friends last night, it was, LA has been through fucking hell this year. I know we all have, but between the fires and an ice invasion, the fucking Marines, and now a tsunami watch, it's just, I think everybody here is just kind of like, what's next? And
an earthquake, most likely.
Well, that's old hat. We know how to do that stuff. Unless it's like what we saw in Russia.
What did we see? I haven't even seen the reporting from there. I don't know where it exactly.
Massive. I mean, imagine an earthquake in Russia that's so big that you get a tsunami alert on the west coast of the United States.
But it was in the water. Like it wasn't like was there damage done somewhere in terms of? Wasn't it dumb for you to go out there this morning? Why did you do that?
Yeah, probably.
Why were you not scared?
I checked the cams. And, I got out, I told myself I was just going out to take a look, which is a lie that I tell myself, because if you're just going to take a look, you don't need to bring a wetsuit and a surfboard with you.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you checked the cams. So you didn't see a tsunami coming. And I guess I thought they just came out of nowhere. All of a sudden the water sucks out and there's Sam going, you know what? I'll just ride it. I'll ride the tsunami. I'm Sam Youngman. I'm really good at this.
Wow. Yeah, I wish I could tell you this is this is the first stupid decision I've made in my life, but I can just add it to the massive pile that's about to topple over like Jenga. I don't know, man. It probably wasn't the brightest thing in the world, but it's how I'm like preserving my mental health these days is to get on a damn surfboard. And, the grosser shit gets in Washington and around the country, the more I need to be out there.
Absolutely.
So was it smart? No, but I'm glad I did it.
A lot of people doing a lot of dangerous and daring things that brings them happiness, joy, or an adrenaline boost to get through the madness and
it sounded
chaos.
like I took medical advice from RFK Jr. Did something really fucking stupid. Oh my God.
I haven't. It's like I don't know who covers him best or the most, but I feel like I should be checking in with that outlet or reporter because there's just so much that's happening at HHS and with him on down.
It's not Olivia Nuzzi.
She had like an affair with him of some sort. Bizarre. And then we haven't heard from her, I feel like, since that. Well, Sam, lots to talk with you about. Yes. And it would seem that the top story should absolutely be that the president of the United States just admitted that the dispute that he had with Jeffrey Epstein was over a young woman that worked for him and then worked for Epstein. How would you position this? How would you frame it? And what is the importance of this, what seemingly new information?
To me, the top news continues to be Donald Trump is refusing to rule out a pardon for a convicted child sex trafficker and rapist. I do think yesterday the language that Trump used, he stole her. That's a man who's talking about a young woman as if she's a piece of property, as if she's not a human being, as if she is a good or service to be trafficked or sold. It also doesn't add up. We know Virginia Giuffre left Mar-a-Lago to go work for Jeffrey Epstein in the early 2000s, and then Trump didn't have his falling out with Epstein until a couple years later. So that's a lie, on top of a lot of other lies about this very, very sordid affair. Man, I'll tell you the truth. when this all first started, my thinking was, yeah, I know they were best friends. I know a lot of gross, icky shit goes on at Mar-a-Lago, but none of this really surprises me. And, they probably did really have a falling out. I'm now convinced Trump is guilty of some really heinous and evil shit, just based on the way he's acting. It doesn't add up. It's one lie after another, starting with Pam Bondi's, the files are on my desk. I'll just release them. Trump says he was briefed that he was in the files, then says he was never briefed. I mean, it's one contradiction after another. And that's not unusual for Trump land, obviously. But when you're talking about something like this, every one of our fucking antennas should be up right now.
Yeah. Yes. All of that. He stole her should be the headline at the New York Times. I see that you're sharing that.
Yeah.
And others are on social media because, I hate conspiracy theories. I love good journalism, investigative reporting. I like science. I don't like jumping to conclusions. I've been hoodwinked a few times and embarrassed on live radio because I believed this or that for a moment or two. But when you say it doesn't add up, I was going to say, no, everything is seemingly adding up.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, his behavior is adding up, and now he says he stole her, and also said I never had the privilege of going to the island, which sounded horrific.
Really bad.
So it's just, it doesn't feel like I'm jumping to conclusions or believing a conspiracy theory to be speculating based on all of this that he may have been sharing the wonderful secret they had was that they shared young women.
Which there were allegations of all along. I'm like you. I don't believe generally in conspiracy theories for one very simple reason. I work in Washington, D.C. For conspiracies to work, you need discretion and you need competence. And those are two things that are generally in short supply when it comes to American politics. The reason I'm changing my opinion on this one is because it's starting to lack that discretion, right? Like if there was really a September 11th conspiracy, it would require millions of people to keep their mouths shut, right? To engineer it and then to, take a vow of silence that they stick to. The reason I'm starting to believe this is because that vow of silence has been broken. Somebody is spilling the beans, and it just happens to be the dumb orange son of a bitch who is probably, is all over the files. He's the one who's not, being discreet. He's the one who's not being competent. And that's why it seems like a very real conspiracy.
There is some question in terms of strategy, and I hate to get to politics necessarily because you're doing a really good job of talking about the importance of these human beings and what it means to the crime of trafficking them or assaulting them sounds like, and how it's objectification, which is what we know Trump has always done, even with his own daughter. But do you think that Democrats should continue talking about this one thing and forcing the release of these files? What do you think of that strategy, or should they be focused on, economics, kitchen table issues, and all that bullshit?
If Democrats aren't up for fighting pedophiles, child sex traffickers, then we might as well pack it up and go home.
Right.
This is what this is what matters right now. If the president of the United States is a child sex trafficker, if he, has inappropriate relationships with child sex traffickers, the American people deserve to know. The idea that this would be beneath us, because we're, on the high road or some bullshit like that is just crazy. I appreciate you saying that about making the victims or the survivors a priority, because I do think that's what we need to be talking about. These are real human beings. Virginia Giuffre took her own life in April. There was no statement from the president about his former Mar-a-Lago employee. There was no, not an ounce of concern like he had for Ghislaine Maxwell, right? We know he wished her well. So I'm glad we are keeping that at the forefront. But the bottom line is, this is why we have a government with investigatory powers. This is why we have opposition parties. So if there is a criminal, if there is a predator in our government, they need to be smoked out. They need to be called to the fucking mat. And there needs to be accountability. So if our party's not up for this, or if our party's saying, hey, let somebody else handle it, then those people need to step aside, because as far as I'm concerned, they're accomplices.
Agreed. Really well said. What does it mean if the president of the United States pardons or commutes a sentence or gives any kind of break to Ghislaine Maxwell, who recruited and groomed and assaulted herself hundreds, if not more, women, over 1,000 victims of Epstein's apparently? What is it? What does it mean for, I don't know, him, us? It's unfathomable that he would do that. And there's only one reason he would do that. And I'm just scared that she's just going to give a whole bunch of names and not his.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's what it's shaping up to be, right? Like, she gives
Like,
him
it's just his guy, his personal lawyer, which is now Deputy AG or something like that, meeting with her alone.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a line prosecutor with another person in the room.
Yeah, I mean,
how it's always done.
Look at how Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have been, like, raked over the coals by their own audiences.
Yeah.
You telling me they wouldn't be up for concocting a new list at this point? Why not, right? Trump learned long ago that all you've got to do is survive the news cycle. Get the headlines you want that day, and then the news media will move on. As for what it means, it's another new low, right? I mean, it's a degradation of American law and order that seemed unthinkable, even with the president who attacked his own United States Capitol. I mean, we're talking about raping children. We're not talking about cheating on your taxes. We're not even talking about cheating on a wife or a husband. We're talking about one of the most evil crimes a person can commit. For Trump to pardon somebody of that nature, I mean, you'd like to think that even for his base, that would be a step too far.
What does it mean? That question, we get so fixated. I know I do. What does it mean for his base? Will the fever ever break? Mm-hmm. It's a fascinating behavioral analysis if it wasn't so terrifying that our friends and neighbors support this guy in this cult-like fashion. Mm-hmm. But you know, should we be asking this question, Sam? Should we be asking what does it mean for the base? What does it mean for the midterm elections? Or does that question annoy you? How should we be looking at what this means for MAGA and Trump supporters?
Yeah, it annoys the shit out of me because it's the only standard the mainstream media, like the New York Times, are using at this point. Like, if fucking great white race, 6969 on Twitter doesn't think it's a scandal, then it's not a fucking scandal. Like, if Mike Flynn's not upset, then the rest of us shouldn't give a shit. I don't want our national standards to be set by QAnon freaks. I want us to know what right and wrong is, and this should be a slam dunk, right? This should be an easy one. So no, it's not a good thing that our watchdogs are basically sitting on their ass until some QAnon nut job decides, hey, this is a real problem. No, it's gross, it's icky, it's evil, and it's supposed to be beneath the United States of America. I guess we'll find out.
The great Sam Youngman, I love watching you talk about human rights. It turns me on.
Thanks, bud.
I mean, the way that you have a real honest, transparent passion for it always comes across. And I think sometimes when I'm talking to you, I can't always put my finger on it, but I share that. And so when I hear it from you, I really, it resonates with me and I think other people, the way that you talk about other people and human rights in general. And so I want to ask you about what's happening in Gaza and the starvation of these children, because I think that news is affecting me personally, spiritually, emotionally, more than any piece of news in all the time I've covering it. I do remember back in, I think, 2007 when I was talking about the Middle East on the radio and Palestinian kids were getting bombed back then. I remember going to bed and thinking about that at one point. Mm-hmm. But this is different, and I feel like it's a real heavy thing for us right now to see this, and hearts and minds are changing. And I don't know how to talk about it or think about it, but that's all I wanted to say is this starvation, not just the indiscriminate killing or maybe torturing or assassination of kids and children, but like the starvation, Sam, this is hundreds of aid groups talking about this. Mm-hmm. How are you, given the way that you can talk so eloquently about this, how are you talking about it, writing about it, reporting on it, and digesting it, like living with it?
I mean, I would say less than eloquently. I've had a hard time with this from the beginning. October 7th was a gruesome terror attack. I completely understood Israel's desire to punish some people for that. At some point, this stopped being that. I was slower than I care to admit to see the full picture here. But as far as I'm concerned, you say such nice things, and I really appreciate it about my clarity on some of these issues. But to me, this is like a stove is hot. You put your fucking hand on it, you get burned. It becomes really obvious what's happening there. What's happening in Gaza right now goes beyond, religious talk. It goes beyond October 7th talk. it's a crime against humanity, what we're seeing. And you are seeing the tide of public opinion turn. You know, I think like a lot of people, I am always cognizant when I'm talking about this stuff that I don't want to be labeled an anti-Semite. I think anti-Semitism is an evil. I'll never forget the profound impact that Schindler's List had on me when I went to see it, when they took us as a high school class to go see it. I cannot imagine being called an anti-Semite. To me, that's like being called a Nazi. It would make me do some real serious reflection if I was ever labeled with that. I've never believed, though, that criticizing the Israeli government or criticizing Israeli leadership is the same equates to anti-Semitism. What I see right now is a government that's using starvation of children as a weapon. And if we can't fucking say that that's wrong, then what are we doing here? I mean, the idea that you can use that as a weapon of war and still claim the moral high ground is laughable. And there's nothing funny about any of this. I follow Miss Rachel, she does the show for little kids. And oh my God, the way she talks about the children in Gaza, it just, if your heart doesn't break into a billion pieces, I don't know what you're made of. But, you know, I don't know. This is always such a hard issue for me to talk about. I grew up in Owensboro, Kentucky. I knew 2 Jewish families. I knew zero Arab or Palestinian families. So I don't really have a personal mooring to have like really strong opinions one way or the other. I have always believed Israel should have the right to defend herself because she is surrounded by people who want her to not exist. That always made sense to me. But at some point in the last year, this crossed over to something else. And one last thing I'd say about this, the smartest thing anybody has said about this, you talk about eloquence, the smartest thing anybody has said about this since it started was Joe Biden. Biden went to Israel not long after October 7th, and he said to them, don't do what we did after September 11th. Right. We had the whole world on our side, and then we squandered that by going too far in the other direction. I thought it was one of the most prescient, just a smart piece of advice to a grieving and angry people. And it's just, maybe it's just human nature that we're not able to take that advice, but but I wish they had.
It's a really great point, a very, very good point. And I like and appreciate everything else that you just said as well. I think that it's hanging heavy over people's lives, and it's crossed into a lot of other things when you're distracted by other things. And it's just like, I can't believe this is potentially happening. This has to end. And it's also, in my opinion, I think one of the most effective voices I've heard recently, I'm sure you saw that, must have gone viral, gotten to you, that Mandy Patinkin rant on this. Yeah. And, he and others make the point that Israel's actions are creating anti-Semitism. And that's sad, but it's true. It shouldn't be the case at all. It should be able to separate the country from the religion. But, yeah, moving on, it's hard to move on from, and it's a really important issue to talk about, but I wanted to make sure we gave it some time today. I'm
glad you did. And, look, there's a common thread between those stories. You're either in favor of protecting kids or you're not. And the idea that you'd set some kids aside and say, well, they're expendable, man, that is just not fucking okay. Sorry, I know I'm worked up. I'm dropping F-bombs left and right.
I welcome them all, especially talking about this issue. Okay, so wanted to also just ask you about anything else that you guys are talking about and reporting on, especially what's happening with the trade war and the economy. And you had the Fed chair out here today looking like it's going to be tariffs are causing higher prices and inflation. He's going to get raked as a result of that today. But we've also heard some people say, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, these tariffs. There's so much gaslighting. There's so much lying. It's hard to know what deal has been done. I think the most important thing you can kind of do is look at the other countries reporting. Are they reporting that they made a deal? And if so, what are their thoughts on it? But what about the economy and this bill that just passed that is not getting a lot of attention? Everything else is sucked through the vacuum as a result, especially of the Epstein stuff and Gaza.
Yeah. Well, they're talking today about 3% GDP for the second quarter, which I don't know how anybody believes any statistics we're getting out of this administration anymore. I've basically just started taking them with a grain of salt. But Jerome Powell believes them. And the Fed chairman said this morning that the 3% growth this quarter might be okay. But when you combine it with the 1.5% growth from the first quarter, it ain't that great. I have a question for you, Pete. Do Americans like coffee and red meat? Because I think they do. Have you tried to buy either of those things lately? Because they are expensive as hell. We just had a whole goddamn presidential election about higher prices.
Yeah.
Trump comes out, admits to the world he just heard the word groceries for the first time, and then lies about gas being $1.98 in four or five states. And it's like, oh, if Biden had only known he could just fucking lie about everything, that's what we should have done.
He couldn't, though. He couldn't, though, and we wouldn't have allowed him to. That's the difference.
Yeah.
I won't allow for you to say that because no one else can get away with these types of things, it would seem. And then, Democrats and a lot of Americans would never buy it if Joe Biden was saying it. It's hard to believe that Trump gets away with it still each and every day. But, yeah, all true.
It's like I always say, Democrats are held to impossible standards and Trump's been held to none. I mean, it's
such a good quote. Finally, the attacks on Zoran Mamdani continue. The lack of support from Democrats and leadership is a huge, I think, gaffe and elephant in the room. Every time they go anywhere to do an interview, they're going to be asked, why aren't you supporting the Democrat who won the Democratic primary in one of the biggest cities in the world with more votes than any of you have gotten in any of your primaries, more actual people voting? What are your thoughts? I know you've been talking a lot about this and have strong opinions on the way he is being talked about by fellow Democrats or not talked about, ignored. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's almost like we're allergic to winning. I mean, we spent months pulling our hair out and saying, oh, my gosh, we need young men. We need popular people who can talk to voters. And then we got one there, and Democratic leadership's like, not like that. And it's just it's infuriating. Instead of taking notes on how this guy is doing this, at a moment when the Democratic Party is in the cellar with voters in terms of popularity, instead of taking notes or asking him how he's doing it or even trying to use his coattails, we just have people shitting all over him. And it's wild to me, especially for some of these New York members, that they don't see that, maybe a year from now, they're going to be begging him for his endorsement. To me, candidates matter. And the reason I say that is because you need candidates who can actually talk to people, right?
Yeah.
So many of our candidates are basically helpless if they don't have their social media manager or their press secretary next to them. We need people who can talk for themselves. Zoran Mamdani has run an amazing campaign. I don't know if you saw the social media ad that he put out about, flying to Uganda. Here are some New York Post headlines that will probably come out. It was so smart to do that, to take the wind out of their sails before they can even attack him. I just thought it was brilliant. And it's the exact kind of political approach we need from Democrats right now. We don't have a Fox News. We don't have an entire right-wing media ecosystem the way they do. So we need candidates who can break through and who aren't afraid to take that shit on. And right now, Mamdani is one of the few people out there who's doing it.
Really well said. Really well said. There's a lot of people are using that shooting the other day to somehow attack anybody running for mayor. It's a weird fucking thing. There's shootings in New York all the time, every day. I'm not even sure why that shooting got so much attention, to be honest with you. Violence may be down, but that kind of shit, like, it was a high-profile shooting. It was on Park Avenue. It was white people. I really was like, I was paranoid because my daughter was on Park Avenue at the moment. By the way, Sam, I reached out to another guy who worked at one of the companies that was in that building. I was like, hey, you all right? And he's like, yeah, this is terrible. And then we connected to make sure we're going to have a beer. Like, the shooter, only in America does a shooting bring people together. It's insane. But the idea that this shooting is being somehow talked about as a part of this campaign.
Well, I mean, New York actually has a mayor right now. His name's Eric Adams. I mean, the idea that this is raising questions about a guy who doesn't have the job versus a guy who actually has the job right now is crazy. I saw a New York Times reporter saying, this could cause people to give another look at Mamdani. What the fuck are you talking about, man?
Yeah, I don't get it.
What about another look at Eric Adams? The guy that actually has the job right now.
How about New York doesn't like guns? New York City doesn't like guns. Generally speaking, we don't want more guns, and if we had gun laws, but that dude just drove all the way from Nevada with a gun. Like, I don't even know why we're talking about New York City politics or policies when the guy drove across the country with a bunch of guns in his car.
And I tell you, I saw Mamdani say in a press conference just before I came on with you, he said, it's a reminder that New York is only as safe as the weakest gun laws around the country.
And
I thought
that's great.
Such a smart take. Yeah, I wish more Democrats were watching him and taking notes instead of waiting for their pollsters to come back from the field to tell them what they're supposed to believe in. Here's my advice to Democrats. Winning is fucking good. If somebody wins, ask them how they did it. Crazy,
great
right?
advice. I was going to let you go, but I was reminded that I don't think I've talked to you since the CBS, the news that about Colbert and the South Park boys. I've been talking about it on TV like crazy. I said Stephen Colbert should run for president, number one. But my other big point is, isn't this the most ultimate cancel culture ever? Isn't government canceling programs
Quite
and
literally.
actual people?
Yeah. I mean, you've got the FCC chairman going on TV to threaten the members of The View. And it's just like, first of all, what kind of chicken shit president is afraid of Joy Behar? I don't know, man. I'll tell you, I'm a little bit remiss in that I didn't reach out to you when I heard about Colbert because I was so fucking mad. But I know your personal connection to him. I know, I've been a Colbert fan for a long time. I remember meeting him when he was a Daily Show correspondent and they came up to the New Hampshire primary. And this is a guy who's just not only a very talented comedian, but a person with a good heart. Somebody who does know the difference between right or wrong, and it's not a hard discussion for him. So, of course, those are the kind of voices that Donald Trump wants to silence. The South Park guys, where you been, boys? Better late than never. I am so – they showed up like the fucking cavalry, like right when I was just about to hit hopelessness. Colbert gets canceled. You start to think, Jesus, this might be it. And then these two lunatics from South Park come firing, on all cylinders. And it was just such a welcome act of defiance. And I'm damn curious to see what they're going to do next. It's funny because those guys, I used to really dislike the way they talked about politics. I remember I think it was 2004, 2008. They were making fun of P. Diddy, who, presciently, he launched this thing, Vote or Die. And they thought that was so stupid. And basically they set up the election, a school election, as being between a giant douche and a turd sandwich. And so those were like the candidates, like the stand-ins for the candidates. And I remember then being frustrated, it's the same thing we say now. Both parties are not the same, and we need to quit acting like they are. And so that sort of that a pox on both your houses stuff really kind of bothered me. I always thought, they're more libertarians. They kind of enjoy the disgusting nature of it all, but they're not really striking any moral chords for me. But what we saw from them was just beautiful, beautiful subversion.
You like it?
Yeah, I'm a fan.
I loved it too. I'm not a huge fan of them either. I don't know why necessarily. I don't know as much about them as a lot of people do, but that kind of animation, I don't know. It's not. I've never been a huge fan of it, but oh man, that was a huge triumph.
Yeah.
And Benny in the chat, who I always love when he's here because he's smart and funny, he says it's not cancel culture, it's canceling actual culture.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I didn't even know we could look at the chat. That's amazing.
I don't know if you can. I think it's just for me. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can. This is amazing.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
I'm always
you got to light it up.
Yeah, that's freaking awesome. By the way, I don't know if you saw this just before we got together today. Kamala Harris announced she's not going to run for governor of California. So it's wow. It leaves a pretty open field. I know everybody was sort of waiting with bated breath, myself included, to see what she was going to do. But she just said, for right now, my public service won't involve running for office. So I don't know. Maybe she's thinking another run in 2028. I guess, we'll wait and see. But for now,
who does that leave for front runners if she's not going to do it?
It's a good question that I am a little embarrassed to say I couldn't tell you. I mean,
okay. I thought maybe you were
going to. There's a pretty good list going, but I'll tell you the truth. I just kind of assumed she was going to run, and that would pretty much clear the field. So, yeah, I need to. I tell you, I spend a lot of time right now trying to figure out which side my current governor is on. I feel like one day Gavin Newsom is like bringing the fire and saying everything I need him to, and then the next day he's like throwing trans people on the bus on Mike Flynn's fucking podcast or some shit.
Was he on? He was not on Mike Flynn's podcast.
No, just a bad example.
Come on.
Sorry, but that's. Yeah, thanks for clearing that up.
Good to have the governor of California here with me on.
It's like, Governor, thanks for joining us today. Tell us about that time Hillary Clinton cut off that child's face and wore it.
I think that's too far. All right. I'll let you go. It's always awesome.
Ending on that note? We're ending on
No, we don't have to. We don't have to. It's there's always. I thought you were. I can't end on the note I was about to end on. There was some other bad news. Another lawmaker was attacked. This one in Virginia.
Oh man!
I just saw that just now. And what else do we have?
Well, Ozzy Osbourne was laid to rest in Birmingham, and sad to see that. I'm a big Ozzy fan from way back. And then balancing that out, Cameron Brink, who plays for the Los Angeles Sparks, made her return to the floor last night after tearing her ACL last year. So there's two pieces of news that I'm carrying around in my pocket today.
I like it, and I love good news stories, and I like good things to be celebrating. And I was celebrating you out on the waves this morning doing what you love. And I hope everybody gets an opportunity to do something like that and connect with others as well. Yeah. You're the best, Sam Youngman. I really appreciate you for being here, as always.
Pete, you're the freaking best, man. Thanks so much.
All right, Sam Youngman. There he goes. Always great. Love talking to Sam. Go subscribe right now to thealtmedia.com. Let Sam know that you heard him here and that you appreciate whenever he joins us. That's how guests know that you're listening and love to come back. Sam is one of the best, and I hope that you appreciated that as much as I do, talking to him. And all of these great guests can't do it without you. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. That's it. That's all I've got for you today. I hope to see you at tonight's hangout, and I will talk to you tomorrow, if not sooner. Thank you so much for listening. John Carroll writes and performs all the music for the show. He is a Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter. You should buy his new album, and that is at johncarroll.org. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Be good. Take care of yourself. We need you, my bumblebees.
So long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels.